Donald Trump going to be inaugurated January 20th, and one thing that he's promised is to deport criminal non-citizen migrants after, 14 million people crossed the southern border during the Biden administration, causing all kinds of pressure on border communities. But that's really turned every state into a border state, as even the city of Chicago has received 50,000 non-citizen migrants from the southern border. It's caused all kinds of taxpayer issues, with $1 billion+ for taxpayer subsidies to non-citizen migrant health care. You've got education being paid for, housing, even education, a whole bunch of things that are stacking up for taxpayers. But the city of Chicago doesn't seem like they're going to bend at all, and actually are aiming to stand in the way of the Trump administration. Now, Tom Homan, he said that he's going to make Chicago ground zero for those deportation efforts. But at an unrelated event, Governor J.B. Pritzker was asked what the state of Illinois is planning to do ahead of that inauguration Monday.
I can tell you that those conversations have been ongoing for some time now. They're conversations really about, how to react if certain things occur. Those conversations also have included, excuse me, talking to members of the clergy, who are also deeply concerned about their ability to protect people, to hospitals, also concerned about protecting people who are in their hospitals. So it's a broad conversation. I'm not going to talk specifics about it because in reacting to something we don't know yet exactly how it might occur or whether it might occur, I wouldn't want to, tell the folks who are executing on policies that don't make any sense for the state of Illinois how they can be more effective at effectuating them. So.
Now on to the city council, where they were set to take up a measure that several aldermen were pushing to relax sanctuary policies. The proposal included allowing police to work with immigration custom enforcement officials to go after criminal non-citizens. At the beginning of every city council meeting, there's 30 minutes of public comment. Somebody calling themselves Chicago conservative got up and blasted the Johnson administration, saying that they're not doing anything for the black population in the city.
The people here, I see a lot of your supporters here today. And I'm going to ask you guys, what have the Democrats ever done for you for these past 70 years? What have the Democrats have ever done for you? I'm going to ask you guys, who's the bigger fool? The fool or the fool that follows the fool for 70+ years doing absolutely nothing for African Americans such as yourselves? This won't stop at illegals. Our babies will continue to be victims of crime, murder, and things like drugs, gangs, if you vote the Democratic Party in. I'm talking about like black people here making the same mistake over and over again. Don't complain when the streets aren't clean. Don't complain when nothing is getting done, because you guys are still voting people like Brandon Johnson there. He does not care. He cares more about, what do you care about, Mr. Brandon Johnson? Do you care more about your pockets, or do you care about the people of Chicago? You care more about illegals than the people of Chicago. We are from here. You prioritize them more than us. Like, what are you doing, man? You're surprised that you got a 14% approval rating? You're letting in terrorists, man. This is serious. This is on top of what Lori Lightfoot has already done to Chicago. You're adding on to the problem. Do you want to help us or not? Because the people is getting fed up with this, man. The Democratic Party cannot save us. Only God can save us.
But others, during public comments, stood up in support of the city's sanctuary policies.
Chicago has long been a beacon for those seeking a better future, a city enriched by the contributions of immigrants. To alter our sanctuary status is to betray the values of inclusivity and protection that define us. I urge you to vote no on the proposed amendment.
Thank you very much for your comments.
And even another said that they plan a rally to stand up against the incoming Trump administration.
Fascism, yes. Fascism is being inaugurated next week. Trump, Homan, and their local lackeys like Raymond Lopez and Tavares are collaborators with this fascism. All of the decent people who want to see an end to this oppression, to this madness, who don't want to see our immigrant brothers and sisters who have been forced to come here from all over the world be rounded up and hauled off and families destroyed because of that need to stand up and flood the streets January 20th and 21st, saying no, in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America.
The council then heard from Councilman Andre Vasquez, looking back into history of the warnings of concentration camps.
So when we think about the current hate in the moment, but also like the context and history, to think about a whole group of people that were dehumanized and criminalized just for being a certain group of people. Post-Holocaust, when trying to find a home, how the US itself would not accept people who were coming in that were Jewish. And it led to the same kind of persecution that unfortunately, although we talk about remembrance, we don't seem to learn the lessons. As we keep continuing to see people time and time again be pushed away, be criminalized, be dehumanized, be persecuted, we've seen where this story takes us. And so when we think about the remembrance, it's understanding that we are all one community. We all stand together for each other. And if we don't learn the lessons, if we don't truly remember, we're going to continue to repeat these things, and they're going to show us the worst parts of our humanities.
Eventually, the city aldermen, they voted against relaxing the city's policies for sanctuary status. And then Mayor Brandon Johnson took to a news conference where he was peppered with questions about the incoming Trump administration and possible deportations.
Hi, Mayor. President-elect Trump takes office next week. I wanted to ask you if there's been more discussions about the potential for the things that he has said he will do on day one, including, mass deportations, the potential for ICE raids.
If there's been more discussions from who?
Well, within you and, Governor Pritzker, or within the state?
Oh, well, yeah, those conversations continue. I mean, you saw today the reaffirming of the Welcoming City Ordinance. This coalition has really led with tremendous conviction, and that's important. I think the entire state of Illinois, we're all on the same page as it relates to protecting residents. Look, I just think it's important, too, that we also acknowledge the threats around education, the environment, the city of Chicago, 100% renewable energy to power our buildings, including both of our airports. I don't know how much you all have had a chance to watch some of these, nomination hearings. There are some disturbing things that are coming out of these hearings. And, if it were just one threat, I think that our response in this moment, we probably would have, a less arduous time fending off those threats. But what we do here in the city of Chicago, we recognize that there are multiple lanes of threats that we have to pay attention to. So we will continue to have those discussions with the state of Illinois and with our federal partners as well to ensure that the people of Chicago get maximum benefit in this moment and that all of our residents are protected.
Action there. Can you talk about what you are doing to prepare for that? What does that look like?
Well, thank you for that question. And here's the thing that I think we should really celebrate. Working with the state, working with county government to respond to this mission, as difficult as this mission was and has been, we would not have gotten through this without working together. What you saw from the governor of Texas was an attempt to break our spirit here in Chicago. We rose above that attack and we actually built a system of care for Chicagoans and those who are seeking refuge in the city of Chicago. I'm very proud of that work. As far as the work that we're doing specifically, Beatrice Ponce de Leon has done an amazing job, and she certainly can speak to some of that work. Bea?
I want specifics.
Yes, good afternoon. Certainly, people have raised the question of safety in the shelters. And I do want to say that at this point, there are no new arrival shelters anymore. The shelters have been merged and are all accepting anyone in need of shelter. But we are aware that there are some that have higher numbers of migrants. So the guidance that we are providing is based on the guidance that was released on Friday to external partners like the sister agencies. It really just instructs people to identify their own own legal counsel, identify a lead person on site. If ICE were to show up, then you call legal counsel. There are certain things that you want to ensure that it is, in fact, an ICE agent that is approaching you. There are ways to verify that. We ask for a federal judicial warrant. This is all information that is really public knowledge, and it is covered by the Welcoming City Ordinance as well as by the Illinois Trust Act. So our job has been to work with the state to look at both the Trust Act and the Welcoming City Ordinance, provide that level of guidance. What was released in the email, in the press release on Friday, is what we're basing that on. And then each of those shelters, they're all operated by different nonprofit organizations at this point. They've all been turned over to CBOs, which was also a commitment that we made during the New Arrivals mission, was to make that transition. They will take that guidance and they will fill in the blanks and operationalize it so that they're prepared when people come. If ICE were to show up at those locations.
Is this, do you think, a lot more bluster than it's actually going to be? Or do you think Chicago is really going to be fiercely targeted for deportations?
Well, first of all, we take any threat. We take it seriously. And that's why you saw the reaffirming of our commitment to our Welcoming City Ordinance. You saw a reaffirming and a recommitment, or stronger commitment to that ordinance. Now, look, you've already seen some level of capitulation from the Trump administration. At first, it was mass deportation, and then there was a very specific sort of categorization around criminals, right? So there's this moving target. Here's what I believe is most important here, is that the Trump administration has an opportunity with the Senate, with the House of Representatives and the judicial branch of government to actually move policies that can transform people's lives. We do need comprehensive immigration reform policy to actually pass. There's a bipartisan bill that the Senate has already passed that he can move on, whether it's making sure that there are judges who can move asylum cases faster, or workers at the border, to respond to any sort of influx. But I would actually take it one step further. You have families who have been seeking a pathway to not have to hide and to be in the shadows. Families who've been seeking a pathway to come forward. That's what our effort should be about. Today you heard some very profound speeches today of how members of the Jewish community sought refuge and sought asylum and refuge here in our country. The Irish, the Italians, of course, even descendants of slaves as we migrated from the South to find refuge in this beloved city. Our Welcoming City is something that has a very robust, storied aspect that we should all celebrate. And so whether or not, the president-elect is taking himself serious enough to carry out, certain aspects of what he has promised, that's one that I won't speculate. But what I can say is that as a city, we are going to work to protect education, protect families who have immigrated here, families who have sought asylum, families who want better affordability. We're going to continue to stand up and lead in this moment because that's what Chicago has been known for. And we are certainly grateful that there is a full company and body of individuals who imbibe what I always call the soul of Chicago.
On a separate issue for the city of Chicago, and we highlighted this briefly yesterday, S&P downgraded the city's credits, which ultimately means it's going to cost taxpayers more money when the city has to go and borrow funds to pay for city services. Well, the city's CFO, Jill Jarowski, she addressed the downgrade that S&P gave the city of Chicago earlier this week.
Thank you. We're not able to precisely say how much that's going to cost at this point. We have a wide range of ratings from single A to Baa minus for Moody's, which is essentially a triple B minus. The S&P downgrade puts them at the second to lowest rating that we have. And, while we're very disappointed in that movement, and we think that, the city's credit is certainly higher than triple B quality, we do have a whole range of ratings, and I don't think that investors are looking at one single rating that is in the middle as determining the cost of our borrowing. Certainly, if our lowest credit rating were downgraded, that would be very significantly costly to us. But when the ones in the middle move around, it's not likely to cost us as much when we're in the bond market.
So a lot going on in Chicago. I think that's going to be all eyes on the Windy City whenever Trump takes office, with Tom Homan saying he's going to make Chicago ground zero for their deportation efforts. We'll be watching that closely, so stay updated with the Center Square. Get the headlines in your inbox each and every weekday morning at thecentersquare.com. Wake up here with America's Talking Network for Illinois in Focus Daily, and get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop.